So yes, human-centered and human-driven manufacturing innovation, and I'm putting on this this sheet now, which gets more and more annoying. The more farther we go in the sessions, the more annoying it gets, because also research innovation objectives are getting lower and lower. And as I mentioned before, it's somehow natural because, you know, we're talking excellence, we're talking green, because that's what we want to aim at in terms of impact. The product service is a surrounding layer, if you want, but you need that layer. And this is the same thing. The human aspects in terms of an enabler are important, but there's also some other horizontal pointers that have been put in this specific objective that could have put like horizontally across the whole program actually. But somehow, of course, we need to respect some structure. So we'll come back to that. It will become more clear in the interventions particularly. Some initial pointers and ideas about creativity, so that creativity is very much needed when you plan stuff in manufacturing. So design and engineering, it's there where you create agile systems. So somehow the systems themselves become very responsive, but you have to use your creativity to make that happen in the design and engineering phase. So somehow we need to support that. We talked about in several occasions about pilots and the need for pilots. Definitely that's an environment that supports creativity, and we should maybe look into how we can make that even stronger and better. There's this initiative from the European Commission on testing and experimentation facilities, so there's some surrounding initiatives going on there too. Then definitely regarding humans, and it relates a bit to the whole discussion about AI and decision-making systems and who is in control, that the notion of augmented human capabilities is one that probably we could actually put even more to the front on this occasion for this work program, to really consider the human capabilities as the center and the support of all technologies to augment those human capabilities in the factories. This can relate to augmented reality. Can relate to augmented reality, to digital twins. We referred to digital twins already before. I think the augmented virtual reality is now even more associated to the human aspect, because we're talking about an interface for training, for maintenance purposes, etc., etc. Which brings us to skilling, if we're talking, for instance, training, reskilling. There's also an idea, a concept that we will also hear about or discuss today, about using digital technologies to qualify / certify workers, to really know what workers are capable of, and also then be able to see which other job profiles they would be, for instance, suited for, or that they have really the intrinsic capabilities to actually to be allocated to innovative situations or jobs. And then there's a pointer on manufacturing innovation and change management, which is a research objective that we have. So Paul will also intervene on that, make an intervention on that. I put some bullet points there already to put the flavor in, also in the slides. Definitely similar to the business perspective, we're talking about non-technology enablers that we need to take into account as well in a holistic way. The link to manufacturing innovation and change management also has to do with leadership in driving change. And we heard also in previous discussions that there's a reluctance in many companies, for instance, to adopt, data exchange solutions because of ownership, because of privacy and stuff like that. So there's many pointers that play a role, factors that play a role. So really getting the whole innovation system into your workflow management systems. So we will hear about that too, which links also to technology validation and migration paths, which is basically a pointer that there's many developments ongoing, and certainly in the partnership, Made in Europe partnership, with the start of this new partnership on the Horizon Europe, there will actually anyway be more requirements or expectations towards us as the partnership to do, for instance, additional activities to make this the outcome of all the projects be more than just the sum of all projects together. This relates a bit to that. Of course, within the projects portfolio, we have projects like I4MS projects. We could think about, okay, what could be done more, and this links a bit to the testing and experimentation concepts maybe that we can think of, how to make the partnership actually more solid in terms of getting the exploitation going in industrial community. So that's some pointers. So with this, I would like to give the floor to, well, there's Minna Lanz, there's Eurico Assunção, there's Johan Stahre, and there's Paul Peeters, who will make some short interventions. And we'll start with Minna.
All right. Hello all. Nice to see you all here. And for those who have not met me, so my name is Minna Lanz. I come from Tampere University, Finland. I had few slides on this particular topic on human-centered and human-driven manufacturing innovation. And well, we are getting lower on the scale, but I still would like to highlight that the topics 4.2 and 4.3 were still considered rather relevant in this particular topic area. Maybe this is not that much technology oriented, it's more on how to take up and use these technologies later on. So we are going a little bit on the softer side, such as education and reskilling. And maybe this is one of the reasons why some of these topics have not received that much input. But I try to cluster the material based on the relevance and a little bit on the life cycle phases. So there is quite a lot of topics which go to the product design and production and methods design phase. So not all of these research and innovation objectives are directly to the factory floor. And for example, the creativity aspect, what Chris mentioned here. So the creativity is excellent if we are on the product design phase and the production and methods design phase. But it's not that well appreciated if there is a creativity in the factory floor, because it means that the production has failed. But if we stay on the production design phase, then the creativity has a role. And I try to cluster, like I said, these research and innovation objects to the phases which I considered that maybe these are the points, and this is my personal objective, so feel free to comment and give feedback that is this really correct focus area. But under these topics, I clustered some of these feedback collected from the consultation form, and they answered the question of what. So what needs to be developed, what we would like to develop. Later on the speeches, Johan will explain a little bit on how and by whom these could be taken into account. But there is a lot of utilization of AI, digital twins, advanced user interfaces, AR, VR, mixed reality, etc. But a little bit on considering, for example, here on the adoption of the technology and the new roles what the worker or the designer, operator might have in the future. And of course, in the research objective 4.5, which is a particular interesting, it's the connecting the pilot lines, cascade funding projects, test and experimentation facilities, and also the how to ensure that our innovations will mature in such a way that they are in line with the regulations, in particularly with the machine directive. And I would like to highlight that there is not many comments on concerning that how we could use the pilot lines and test and experiment facilities in future, because the research partners, universities, we are exempt from the machine directive. The companies are not. So the piloting together in the shared environments might be one way to increase the take-up of the different technologies to the companies. Then I continued a little bit. Well, the objective 4.4 did not receive that much input, but there were some ideas that could we use the gamification on particularly in change management and reskilling, maybe in technology transfer, and of course the business model changes a little bit. But these would require a little bit more input. And then I started to little bit continue my mindset. We started this also in the last night with a little bit on brainstorming, and we have the objectives and we have the grand impacts, and in between of these we have of course the Horizon Europe programs which deliver the innovation in a mass. Then the EFRA, which is the awareness raising and vision building and offers the speed for technology take-up. Then a little bit question is that community and companies, that how we are increasing the acceptance, test and experiment pilots, so how we ensure that the technology penetration is happening within the communities, and in the end there is this actual take-up and reskill that has to happen inside the companies, and then we are talking about the absorption of these technologies. So these were some of my highlights and comments regarding on this human-centered topic areas. Okay, thanks.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Just checking. Johan, you're up next, and your slides should be there, ready for you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Minna, also for making a very comprehensive expose of all the technologies that are available. I would like to take a different perspective on this. If we look at this general objective 4, which is actually sad since it's about the people that we are talking about, that this is only objective 4, it should perhaps be objective 1. But what is about here is that we are creating attractive added value manufacturing jobs, which we all want to have, right? But for whom are we creating these jobs? Who are those people that are going to take these jobs? Do we have the right assumptions? Are we based on today's assumptions on who are in the job market today? And the specific objective for the specific objective, the human-centered and human-driven manufacturing innovation, how is that done? Using all these technologies that Minna were proposing, and by whom, again? So this is why we really need not digital twins, but real twins in Europe. If you look at the left graphic here, that's the number of, or the percentage of 65 plus in these countries. You see the black ones, they have more than 20%, more than 22% in the society are actually more than 65 years old or retired, if you go back a couple of years. The rates of birth, if you look at that, the orange ones is more than 1.9, which is below the average in order to sustain the population. And the light ones, that's below 1.35. So this is really a drastic reduction on a long-term basis. But we have migration, you could say. Well, that doesn't help us enough, and most of the migration is actually going to specific parts of Europe. It's not spread out. So this is what we have to work with when it comes to the jobs that we are supporting. And this is what we have to compete also with hospital staff, public public services and things like that. So my name is Johan Stahre. I'm production system professor at Chalmers University of Technology in Göteborg, Sweden. We work a lot with industry, and some of the industry comments that we get right now is how can we get the workforce of the future, and how can we get them on the right level of competence in order to support the new advanced technologies that we are working with. The World Economic Forum a couple of years ago made a study. They asked, I think, companies containing about 18 million, totally in 180 companies, I think, with 18 million people employed over the whole globe. And they came out with some figures that more than 54% of these people needed at least 1 month of reskilling to be able to handle the new technologies. And this is available on the web. There was an update last year where they went into more specifics, and you can also find advanced manufacturing there as a topic. And if you transfer those figures to the European figures of people who are employed in manufacturing industry, that means that we have 15 million people that needs reskilling. And if you add that up, it's more than 100 million person months of training and education that you have to do. So just the backlog of productivity given those 100 million person months would be exhausting for European industry. So this is, for me, is the context in which we have this human-centered manufacturing innovation. Another aspect, we're talking a lot about AI, we're talking about augmentation. In the 60s in Stanford, there were two professors. One was John McCarthy. He was the father of AI. He was in one lab, and 100 meters away was another lab by Douglas Engelbart. He was the father of intelligence augmentation. He also invented the mouse and the hypertext and set up the network, first network in Silicon Valley. His goal was to augment human work, and John McCarthy's was to replace human work. And those two strands have never really met since then. So it's the waves of AI are coming, but augmentation is what I think that this topic that the European Commission is working with, the human-centeredness here is the augmentation rather than the replacing. But since we don't have any people, we may need both. So based on these topics that we are presenting, we may need to differentiate between the technologies that Minna presented that is actually replacing people and helping difficult situations, difficult decision-making situations, but also physical automation. But we also need the augmentation to take the elderly people and the not so skilled people and help them to perform their jobs. So if just running through these key enablers, the complementarity here is of course extremely important. The augmentation is based on the complementarity. Skills are needed. We need to find new ways to deliver skills, not courses, but on-the-job training. You remember Matrix when she downloads the helicopter instructions and just goes on. That needs technology. That's a lot of technology involved there. So it's not just soft skills here, soft topics. It's really hard technology, but it's supposed to support the human and augment the capabilities. And the societal engagement, how can we interact with society? Can we, in these calls, find topics and projects that connects people to society? That might make it easier to attract the people that we want to have on our shop floors, but also in our product development departments. Tools that support creativity. Again, it's augmentation, helping creativity, which is a human skill that is rarely automatable. Augmented virtual reality, various kinds of digital twins. The innovation, how can you increase innovation? Can you create innovation is usually not revolutionary but evolutionary. It needs platforms, it needs pilots, it needs sandboxes, it needs test beds. Can we create a lot of test beds where we can actually test these augmentation technologies in a good way? And finally, how can we get these to the SMEs in rapid succession? How when it's developed by the researchers, how can we get it more speedy, not only to the big companies who will adopt and attract this knowledge immediately, but also to the SMEs, to find ways to do that, platforms, etc. So that is my take on this call. Thank you.
And I believe now Paul Peeters will provide us some more insights in definitely the innovation management side of things.
Hello, I'm Paul from Agoria, the Belgian Technology Federation, working there for 7 years now, especially on factories of the future. The last 3 years, however, and I would like to draw on that experience, I've been leading the European ATMA project, Advanced Manufacturing Support Center, where we have set up a program especially for SMEs, to assist them in getting into the journey towards factories of the future. And I would like to just point out 3 main observations. The project just finished in June, 3-year project, and I have for myself 3 main observations. The framework we have provided them was a framework consisting of both technological and non-technological innovation access. And that combination made it worthwhile and made it very holistic, as some of the companies called it, to work upon. Mainly because they felt that by working on these 7 axes, they felt that they had everything covered. And they were not just doing technology or just doing eco or whatever. So it was a whole balance of work to be done. On the non-technological side, the topic of this research objective, we were a bit surprised with the outcome. We heard from the companies that one of our transformation axes is called networked factory. So it means for a factory leader to really go out of the factory and touch base with other partners, and also to enable other people in the company to do the same. They all found it important, but actually nobody really was taking it on a strategic level. And that made us think that here, connecting with others is still something, especially for SMEs, which still need to be stressed a lot, and to really stress the benefits of doing so. So the holistic picture was a very powerful way of working, and I think it's integrated through this research objective very nicely, although maybe ranked a little bit low. But two main, so point 2 and 3 for my observations were needs they still had. The thing they were asking us throughout these 3 years was, can you help us find the right people? That was by far the sentence we heard most of the times, We can't find the right people anymore. That says 2 things. Like Johan said, there are not enough people anymore. But that says another thing, we don't find the people with the right qualification. So there are 2 aspects to that. And I think we should address both. It's like somebody called it, we have to learn to do more with the same amount of people. Where years ago it was do more with more people. Now it's there is a limitation, and of course technology will help us there. Of course, what we have learned already today will be of utmost use to that. The third observation, which was also a need expressed by them, was we don't really find the time to work on these innovation things. We are being, COVID of course didn't help here, but irrespective of COVID, SME leaders, they are so busy working with the clients and trying to do everything themselves, mainly family-owned businesses, where the leader really has all the responsibility still. And there, I think we should kind of also start the debate and do research on how this can be done differently. And therefore, the topic of my contribution is on shared leadership. How can we, make this leadership not the role of one person at the top of the company, but the role of everybody inside the company, from top to bottom. And this is work done by the research body Workitects. It's a spin-off of the University of Leuven in Belgium, who has been diving into this topic and who has been looking into the role changes for 3 categories of people. The leader himself or herself, the leaders in the middle, sometimes also called middle management, but that's not really the right word for those people. And then the workers on the floor. They all, will experience a massive change in the future, because of the speed things are coming to us, the speed of things coming to the companies. So leaders have to question themselves, do I need to do everything myself, or can I share my leadership? And in that respect, we see a clear role for middle management, for these leaders in the middle, who should not be stuck in the middle as a kind of a post box between management and people on the work floor, but should be more on the inspirational kind of task, and also providing context for the workers through which they do their work. And then on the level where the real money is made, on the workers level, there will be a shift towards much more learning and development for them, the skill development part. We heard it already today. But there are some kind of risks, and here some research topics might maybe evolve from. It's just to name a few, leadership by example. We don't really see it yet so much in people engaging with shared leadership. It's a difficult one. The leaders in the middle, they should not be left to fate. They should really be empowered again. We can't miss them, we hardly find any people, so why should we get rid of them? 6 years ago, I saw really many companies still, removing layers inside the company, and getting a lot of middle managers getting fired. I think that would be the worst thing you could do right now as a company. Retrain them, refocus them into other tasks, into other, challenges for them. And it's not easy for everybody, but at least some research could really be done on how to do it, on what are the best ways to do this, because there are so many people afraid of being stuck in the middle inside the organization. So to finalize, I've been discussing a lot with Workitects on that. They're really a strong powerhouse there. This is just one of the conversations we had on LinkedIn. It's also about inside your organization, tearing down the barriers between different departments. It's moving away from silo thinking. It's really cross-networking inside the factory and giving people, the employees, the freedom and also the challenge, to do that and to really step out of their comfort zones, to touch base with other colleagues, with colleagues maybe outside the company and so on. And then I asked Karen Wouters, she's the leading lady of Workitects, anything to add to my message? And she said, yeah, I think we should work much more on social identity of teams, those teams of workers on the floor. How can they feel connected with the ambition of the company inside this the factory of the future, or whatever the ambition may be? How can they be connected? And a lot, she says, will depend on to what extent you can really build a social identity of people working in teams. So that I think I at least was thinking as a nice way of developing, and this I just explained in my introduction on the balance. That was my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And we see already, well, I see already on that screen, Eurico is ready. We now also see on the big screen, Eurico, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much to my colleagues that were presenting before me. I totally agree with everything was said. Just a bit of introduction. I come from an industrial association that deals with workforce qualifications. So we award around 40,000. We qualify around 40,000 operators and engineers at European level each year. So we are a drop in the water of the ocean in terms of Johan numbers. And everything that was said makes perfect sense and it's completely aligned to what type of requirements we see from companies. I'll probably focus on, I would say, something else that we also see when we deal with human-centered manufacturing and how can we further support human-centered manufacturing. And I'll pick up a bit of the discussion we had since this morning around the use of data to make factories more flexible, more digital, to have zero defect manufacturing also supported by data collecting, but also looking at how can we use that data that companies, some of them are already collecting, some of them are looking at collecting and analyzing to validate and to qualify and certify the existing workforce. So, like I said, we talked about having digital platforms a lot, but it's also, we do see this coming from industry and probably as a key enabler when you're talking about the companies becoming factory of the future or becoming more digitalized, is to look at developing solutions that use data collection, artificial, augmented reality, virtual reality, but also connected factories, a concept to enable and support workforce certification. Not by developing standards, because we look at industry and manufacturing, this is very much standard dependent, and standard, when it talks about recognition of the workforce capabilities, I'll say it's still very much stuck in the past, but we do need to look at and evaluate how can we use these digital solutions, the data we collect in companies, in factories, to qualify and certify the workforce. This is something that we've been working a bit, trying to understand what this means. We work a lot with SMEs, and this is actually, they say that sometimes, picking up on the last presentation, they don't see the direct added value of becoming more digital, but if they can see something that as they become more digital can support them in facilitating the certification of their products and in also of their workforce and reducing the cost in doing so, that's definitely something they are very much interested in. So one of the things that we would like to start looking at is how can we combine these digital tools that were presented before to allow certification or recertification of the workforce, or even to adapt the workforce based on their experience, what they have been doing, the results of the product, of the process they have been doing, and the type of quality requirements they have been working against, and how that can be used to make companies more flexible in terms of the workforce that they have. And this is something that for us, we do see as very much as a big pillar to accelerate innovation uptake and flexibility. Because if a company can easier evaluate if its workforce is ready for new technology, then it's easier to implement it. And this is something we already see some examples in the market. I come mainly from the welding world. We already see companies that are collecting data from their welders in order to recertify them every 2 years. And this is something that is still done in a hybrid mode. So they collect the data, but they also look at doing every 2 years the test pieces and test specimens. But the more we start having digital factories, the more this data can also be used to assess the workforce and to certify it. So we do see this use of and picking up on the concept of digital twin, almost like a digital workforce, basically that we can use those informations to understand what is needed if we want to uptake a new process, if we want to go into a new sector. And this is very much something that we also feel and we get that type of feedback, would be extremely very much relevant for manufacturing when it goes into implementing digital solutions in a manufacturing environment. We also agree that, and this was also picked up, the use of digital tools regarding to use them as supporting tools for making decisions. This is something that we see more and more companies doing, but probably still needs a lot of work on it. But the one on evaluating the workforce and assessing it, not probably evaluating is a too strong a term, but assessing it is definitely something that we should look into, how we can use all these new sensors, these AI methodologies, these new apps in manufacturing as a service also could be an enabler. How can we use all these concepts to assess and to evaluate where our workforce is and how we can diversify it, or how can we upscale it or rescale it when needed to make it more flexible. And I don't have a presentation, so I have a very short topic because everything was already covered very well by my colleagues. I just wanted to leave this option or this idea on the table. So, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Eurico. The sound connection was not perfect. So what I will do now is just also summarize a few of the points. We heard you, but just making sure also maybe to bring the message, because we had a short conversation also yesterday. So one of the points you're making, and for me that's something a bit novel, I would say, or quite novel, is that there's a lot of talk about collecting data, and collecting data of people, it's a sensitive thing. Collecting data of workers, you could also already say, okay, what kind of personal data will you collect? The point that Eurico, that you are making, is that somehow there's a lot of digital tools out there. Can we actually use almost the track record of a worker, of what the worker has been doing in his career, it's almost the digital twin of the worker, to also assess which opportunities the worker has in future job profiles. While you mentioned the word certification, that's already, maybe even a step forward. But the point is that you're making is to indeed see, with all the challenges that were put forward, with also, reluctance, acceptance issues, to have a better insight into the opportunities for future workers, but even on a personal level, to be able to use that on a personal level. So that for me brings about like a feeling like, wow, this goes quite in the personal field of collecting data. Of course, everybody in this world has a CV and writes down what he's been doing in his career to say, well, that's my capabilities. So, yeah. Are there any particular feelings about that? I'm not particularly looking at you, but you're very free to, very welcome to make an intervention. I see you smiling. Johan, I expected you for sure.
Yes, thanks a lot, Eurico, for these good comment. Going back to what you said, Chris, I think that if you go back 100 years, it was no point in discussing this. You had your reputation as an expert, right? And everyone knew about it. So you went to the one that could do the job for you. Mm-hmm. And yesterday, Facebook was down for 7 hours. And everyone was really pissed off because they could not share their data. So I'm not sure if this is a big problem in a couple of years with the new generation coming, but maybe with the old generation that we talked about before, they might be sensible to that. But they have their reputation on the other hand. So I wouldn't be so worried if I were you.
All right, great. Interesting. There's Luis and
Chris, can I make a comment actually?
Yes, please go ahead, of course.
Yeah, I understand the comment around the data. Yeah, first of all, you explained it very well what I wanted to say, so I do apologize for my connection. But professionals already share this type of information in a piece of paper. If, like I said, I come from a welding world, so if you're a welder and you want to move from the oil and gas to aerospace, you show what you've been doing in oil and gas. people sometimes have to trust what you're saying, but you still need to be evaluated to be able to work in the aerospace. And this is something that, with all these digital solutions out there, and probably need to be tailor-made, I would say, or adjusted, this is something that definitely should be, it's of interest, because like we heard also this morning, companies are looking more and more at how they can operate in different sectors. And for a company to manage professionals, certified professionals or qualified professionals for different sectors is a nightmare. So there's no reason why this type of data sharing, I won't say this is really, I would say it's not personal data, it's more professional data, should be, I wouldn't see that as a big barrier. It's more the technological aspect that is still missing a bit.
Okay, I think we have Louis.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you. Louis?
I want to talk about two concepts, creativity and reputation that Johan was saying before. Okay, creativity without knowledge is naive, is not possible. I mean, you can be creative without knowing, but it's not worth even to try. So, in my opinion, one of the big issues is how we get the knowledge from the existing workforce that, as Johan was saying before, is getting retired. Part of the know-how, of the manufacturing know-how, has also gone into Asia, as we have discussed before. And how are we going to capture that knowledge before it disappears? If we don't get that knowledge, if we don't keep it, forget creativity. I mean, we will start again from scratch, let's say. So I think that is a very important concept. So the input of the workforce into all these artificial intelligence tools, agents that we are developing is something critical. We need that workforce. And the implementation of artificial intelligence in manufacturing will take years. So I think workers shouldn't be concerned about their jobs, because this will take a lot of years, and they can participate in this new creation of knowledge within the factories. And well, that was one idea. The other idea I want to say was regarding Minna, previous slide where you had all these blocks with the objectives, etc. You had the creativity block in the design phase, but well, there are problems in the shop floor, and we need the knowledge of the workers in order to solve those problems. So we need creativity of the workers as well. We need to, I suggest that you move that block of creativity to the right-hand side, so it covers the shop floor as well, because we need the creativity of the workers, not only their knowledge, but also they can participate and they can propose things. Those are my 2 cents on this.
Maybe just quickly to clarify, so the creativity and the shop floor, linking to what Minna said, is maybe associated to the fact that things change all the time anyway. So I think maybe, and just I would like to have, so maybe some feedback from Minna about that. My interpretation from what Louis said is that, okay, you should plan everything, and we discussed it today, but we heard today also that things change so much, so it's hard to plan, and that the human should intervene in the production. Would that be a right interpretation, or, well, please go ahead. Well, please, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to separate these 2 blocks so that the design for production is another block. So there you definitely need the creativity, because you have to be able to prepare for different things. But if we look at the company factory floor, the creativity in the operational excellence context, so when you actually have to produce items, it really means that if there is a disturbance caused by change, the productivity drops and the non-value added time increases. And this is the number 1 objective for the companies, that they have to reduce the non-value added time and increase the productivity. And then the creativity has no place on this operational excellence. Only when there are disturbances, but for the manufacturing company, you have to prepare for the disturbances, but you have to design the operation in such a way that you minimize the disturbances. Then we come to the concepts of adaptivity, flexibility, so that how you can reduce the non-planned disturbances. And again, if we start looking for the new decentralized agent-based systems, then definitely there is a need for creativity, how we actually increase the performance in such a way that it could be used into the factory floor without causing disturbances and production losses. So in that sense, I wanted to make the clear separation that why we should keep the focus that what is important for the companies and then what is important for the company's future, a little bit as a mindset idea. So that's why I put them there. But I'm happy to agree to disagree on this.
Okay, thank you. You have them. Yes, please.
A small remark before
Please.
Adam. So Marie Weiss from Children Institute in France. I'm happy that this subject is raised, and I totally agree with Luis, Minna, and Eurico. I really feel like the workers, yes, they are the center of the factory, and we really need to involve them more in the European projects, more and more, because they will use the technology. So it's essential that, yeah, we have the relevant feedback for implementing the digital solution efficiently. So, yeah, that was just a small remark and a message to not forget to involve the workers in the meetings of the European projects, to ask them for the advice, for the valuable feedback, to be sure that the technological solution will be efficient and relevant when they are coming in the factory. Even in the middle tier, it's really important to my point of view. Yeah.
Thank you. Adam?
If I may continue, so
Please.
I actually wanted to start with Minna's comment earlier,
Okay.
that we tend to ignore, for example, machinery directive, and we focus on demonstrators, which are purely academic. And I think you were spot on with the problem that we have. We are expected to deliver TRL 7 demonstrators, but as everyone, we minimize our effort. So we end up with results which are only TRL 7. So it's very difficult to go beyond that because we ignore everything which is needed to move to 8 or 9. So we ignore the machinery directive because we do not need that in academic or in research setup. We don't talk to users because we test that with our students and say that those are perfect examples of a worker on the shop floor. And we tend to ignore all those tiny bits because we are not explicitly asked for them in the projects. We are supposed to show TRL 7, so demonstrator in a relevant environment. And at the end, we have technologies which are extremely difficult to move forward because they are not prepared for that further marketization. And for me, I understand that we cannot end up with TRL 9 because that would be direct aid to the companies. But maybe we can somehow operationalize those additional criteria which need to be added to enable that in the future.
Johan, you want to reply to this?
I can add to that I had a discussion with a lady at IBM the other week, and we were talking about AI and machine learning and the difficulty of gathering data from machines that cannot go down. If you look at turbines, you cannot look at data for downtime, whatever. They never go down. They're not supposed to go down. So you can never learn, and you can never gather the data. It's difficult to gather the data. And also, I think some of the directives that come from the European Commission, from standards, etc., limits the availability of data and the possibilities to have these personal data coming from people, from operators and others is also limited by GDPR and other regulations. So you actually limit your innovation capability and the possibility to go beyond TRL 7 because of regulations. And that actually is lowering the innovation capacity of both the universities, but also the companies in that sense. So I mean, the regulations there for a good reason. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have regulations, but they're also at the same time limiting our possibilities to go beyond TRL 7. Thank you.
Thanks. Adam, you want to reply to the reply?
Yes, please. So I agree that we need those regulations, but what I meant is, of course, they slow us down, but as you said, they're there for a reason, but we do not even take them into account because intuitively in many projects, we just aim for reaching TRL7 without thinking that we should go beyond that to achieve the impact in the end. So those are projects aiming for TRL7, not for TRL9 with additional funding. That's what is worrying me in that setup.
Okay, thanks for this. Minna?
Yes. So that's why I try to raise the point that we should use the pilot lines, which are sort of a modularized in the start, and they are intended to go beyond the TRL7. But then it's no longer the research, then it's a more applied science, and companies should purchase that as a service. But nevertheless, we have built these marvelous pilot lines, and the test and experiment facilities are coming just in the corner. Then we have the technology infrastructures and the research infrastructures. I don't know what's the difference between them, but these are the ones which are coming. And what is sort of a common is that the companies are not using them still. And that's something we haven't explored enough, that we would need to more good examples on that, how we can utilize the shared infrastructures. You don't have to certify the whole line in a pilot line, but you can test certain technologies, certain safety setups, and go as close as possible to get the safetification for that particular technology. And this is something what I would look forward in the future. But then again, we are stepping out of the research field and going towards more like what we should offer as a service to the companies.
So we're getting back to the service discussion. So somehow that's a good point. Sotiris?
Thanks a lot. I will just add another view coming from another angle. I liked a lot the historical introduction from Johan, but you know, as Greek, when we start talking about history, we see that we have nothing new to say. So in this case, Aristotle said that if we could have good automation, we would not need any slaves at all. So it seems 21 centuries after that, we don't have enough automation yet. So from my perspective, we have to consider the aspects of some difficult jobs that are happening in the factories today. People sometimes have to do jobs that nobody would like to do because there is no other way. There are big parts, heavy parts, dirty jobs. And I would like to emphasize the need to work on new concepts, designing workplaces, designing machines, introducing new kinds of machines to help the workers in the factory. And that's my perspective I would like to add here.
Thanks, Sotiris. Looking around, I'm looking at the clock as well. We're now on schedule to stop this session. Actually, however, I'm going to the questions or comments that we received online. There's a reference from Frans Herzenberger from ArcelorMittal to the link with possible and potential links with EIT manufacturing to reach a lot of younger people that can get trained with up-to-date skills. So that's one pointer to EIT manufacturing. Patrick Martin actually refers to a point that would be nice in terms of a conclusion, actually, because what Patrick Martin says, the interaction between scientific knowledge, invention, more technological application, and innovation, products sold on market is necessary in order to answer the customer needs. In the frame of Horizon Europe's shared projects between pillars 1, 2, 3 should be encouraged, but that's along the program. What I meant was across our specific objectives. I'll come back to that briefly. There's a comment from Sonja van der Linden, Flanders Make, how to combine capturing operator data with GDPR. That was the point that also I was making about. I see Eurico nodding, so that's some aspects that definitely we should take into account. Julio Cesar de Luca remark, in human-centered manufacturing we have to address social science and humanities, which seems missing in the discussion. There's a link to social science and humanities in quite a few of the call topics that were in the work program. I would expect that the Commission also will be very keen to have these again. Then we have Rudy Panchar referring to human-centered design and management should be also mentioned, like human-centered management, but I think that relates a bit to what Paul was saying. Could be a tool for creativity and the we approach mentioned by Paul, so indeed. Then Cosmas, so we have LMS colleagues also coming in. The know-how of industrial workers must be protected from unauthorized use, especially by data analytics companies. The tested knowledge of industrial workers could be overtaken by platform providers. This could lead to workers losing their skills, as their know-how will be captured by advanced AI systems, can be applied using advanced machinery such as robots. Should we prevent this from happening? So that's the whole discussion of where this all could go. I believe that's it. So I think with this, we can conclude this session. I think we can just stay on our seats now, and Željko, you can wrap up the day, I suppose.
Okay. I'll do this.
Thanks for the participation of the speakers, though.
Well, it's difficult to wrap up. Not summarizing, I will never try. Wrapping up, I can try. Well, first of all, I think it was a lot of fun to see each other in real for those who came. So those who are connected online, we were like 45, 50 people here. And I think during lunch, everybody enjoyed a lot to talk, to network, to meet new people, or to see each other again after almost 2 years. So, you know, it was a brave decision. We discussed it a lot in the team, what kind of things we should try out. So I'm very, very happy that we did it, that we tried out this hybrid meeting, that you came, and that we did it. I think the discussion was very rich. I mean, if the last session where we started until the last session, if you imagine what we talked about data platforms, humans, about machines, circularity. So I think I like a lot the scope that we have. It's a very big scope, and I'm happy about the 4 streams we have. So we will continue along this line. As I said, most probably the next meetings will be web meetings, but then per session. But we also get requests to discuss other things. I mean, the whole KPI discussion, the Commission is chasing us. Maybe we will need to have a special meeting on this to go more into details, to analyze. We get a lot of requests on hubs, to discuss hubs. There's a lot of hunger for information, for digital innovation hub, the European hubs. So also we are thinking of doing something on these kind of topics. So my message to you is, those also who are online, please continue sending questions or comments to us. Please, as Chris said, the consultation in principle is still open. It's an ongoing process to fine-tune and to dig more into our roadmap. We will have discussions with the European Commission on the next calls, and then later there will be other calls. And as I said, I think we always can look right and left beside the Made in Europe calls, something that is important for us, but we cannot cover a Made in Europe, but it could be covered by other programs. We have the right to express this to the European Commission, so we should also kind of use this. I think this is what I wanted to say. So now the thank yous. Well, it was a lot of work to organize a meeting. You know, for each of the sessions we had preparation with the speakers. So first of all, thanks a lot to all the speakers, those who came here and those who connected online. Thanks a lot to the team. So that's Julia, Cornelia, Caroline, and Chris. yeah, I'm very happy the way we managed the meeting and the way we prepared it. So thanks to everybody. And with this, please do stay a bit. We have a coffee, goodbye coffee and a drink now. And that's it. The General Assembly next year, I don't know when we will do it. Let's see. And yeah, and let's see how the pandemic continues in terms of events, conferences, online, hybrid, physical only. Let's see what comes up. So thanks a lot for coming. Have a good trip back home.